Should
Hi,
the
how are you?
buyback work? I mean, is this something that you would want to see Apple do with its cash? Almost $200 billion.
Well, I think that distributing the cash is a good idea. Holding that much cash is certainly a lot more than they need, and so they'd have a much more efficient balance sheet by distributing some of the cash to the shareholders. But I'm not totally convinced that the right approach is a buyback. I should disclose that in my personal account and in the accounts of my investors in our investment advisory business, we own Apple. But I believe at this point in time, distributing the cash through a large special dividend probably makes more sense than a large buyback.
Cory, what does Apple spend the most money on in terms of developing products or in terms of hiring talent? Where's their most of their cash going to?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd have to check the income statement to see where they're spending more, whether it's in SG&A or in research and development. The research and development costs are spectacular, and as a percentage of revenues have increased over time over the last couple of years. So as much as they've introduced a ton of new products in the last year, they're spending so much to find more in the future. And I think that, the financial engineering is one thing. I think what Greg just said, share ownership is very key to this. I mean, the notion that Carl Icahn, who owns less than 1% of the company, is saying the company is worth twice as much. Well, he might own 1% of the company. The company owns 20% of his fund, which is to say 20% of his fund is devoted to Apple. So this is a huge position for him. He's got a lot of eggs in that basket. Maybe we shouldn't be so shocked for him calling for a higher price. It's like when T. Boone Pickens says the price of oil is going to be a lot higher. It's T. Boone Pickens and it's oil. It's the same thing we're expecting to hear from him. And yet people always react with astonishment in both cases.
Well, it's more like when OPEC says it should be $100. But to your point, Greg, you said that you do own the stock. I mean, why do you own it? Is it for growth or is it for a dividend and a value play?
Our investment strategy is a rule-based strategy that looks for companies with high returns, growth, and relatively low valuation and risk, and they fit that profile.
They fit that profile. Greg, I wonder, do different rules or should different rules apply to tech companies, to cash-rich tech companies? Because they have more cash than they know what to do with. Certainly, they can use it for reinvesting in their company, but a large chunk of it can be used for short-term action like buybacks.
Certainly, it would be very hard for them to find a way to deploy the amount of cash they have back into the business. They have almost a full year of revenue in cash, so they almost could give away their products for free for a year and still have enough cash to survive, which is really pretty impressive. But what it really means is they probably should be distributing some of it.
Hey, Cory, we pretty much talked all day about Carl Icahn making this buyback call for Apple, but something else really significant happened to Apple today. It kind of won a patent case against Samsung, where it was proven that its products were actually used on Samsung phones. It was a pretty decent win for Apple. Which was more significant?
Oh, absolutely, the patent win. I mean, the notion that a minor shareholder thinks the stock's going to go up isn't that big a deal, and that's not something new for this company. But the patent thing is a huge deal for them. And there was both a big win for Apple in that the bulk of their case against Samsung was upheld by a higher court, but also a big loss because part of the court ruling today was that they had to have a new trial on damages because they said that the damages awarded for stealing essentially the look and the feel of the iPhone was not fair to Samsung, that Samsung was allowed to copy that look and feel, that there were certain engineering things that Samsung absolutely stole, and the higher court agreed with the lower court, that in fact Samsung intentionally and illegally took some of the designs of Apple and Apple's engineering for their benefit, and that's what gave the Samsung Galaxy its market share, and that they won't be able to do that in the future without paying licenses and paying a huge penalty. But that the look and the feel of the iPhone is not something that Apple's going to have a right to keep to itself in the future.